Um, I'm Corey. This is a video for friends and family and doctors and, allies in CFS. What does it feel like to have CFS, ME? Myalgic encephalomyelitis, whatever you were calling it. The answer is it is absolutely different for every person. It is different for every person every day. It is different for each person each hour. So that's a difficult mess as it is. But to give you an idea of the range of things at the more severe level happen, and just imagine this getting slightly less bad towards mild. At a crash in the most severe level, the sound of someone walking outside your door when you have earplugs in is agonizing. It feels like hot nails raked across your brain. At a lower level of bad, that might be that somebody tapping their foot in a conversation is hot nails across your brain. But you're able to have a conversation and talk with someone for a while. Or that the lights in the strobing in a movie are hot nails across your brain. At a lower level, those things give you a headache or make you uncomfortable or feel not right. And too much of them, you don't know why, you're just suddenly, not doing well sensory-wise, and you feel overloaded and overwhelmed. And that might make you go into a fight-flight state. It's a lot like, there's a lot of overlap in the sort of sensory overload stuff with other sensory disorders. But that's what the sensory can look like. Also having brain fog, not being able to remember really simple things, having word salad sometimes, which is when you mean to say like boy and you say ball, or something like that. You replace it with a similar sounding word, but it's not the right word, or you stutter, or you skip words, or you can't get a word out. That's what happens to me when I've been talking too much. Anything that you use, whether it is your neck muscles and torso muscles to hold you upright, or if it's your mouth to talk, or your brain to talk, your eyes to read, your hands to crochet, whatever it is you use, that thing will wear out fast. And in muscles, it feels like, and I was a competitive gymnast, so I know what hard workouts feel like. It feels like a super intense workout where you go from your muscles being sore to really hurting to then spasming and then seizing and then failing to work. For me, when I was more severe, sitting up for 15 minutes, that's what happened to my torso and neck muscles. And that whole cycle, just 15 minutes of sitting upright would happen. So talking, maybe your tongue locks up, but also your brain is involved in talking, and that can lock up. So any muscles you use, they also get extremely sore. So the muscular part, likely your digestive system is shot. There's all kinds of embarrassing and awful things there. You might, constipation is very common. Some people lose bladder control. That's less common, but it does happen. Your muscles are just too weak. Their digestive system is shot. So there's that. Your brain is shot, your digestive system is shot. Really horrible headaches are a thing. And I had, for labor, I ruptured a disc in my back during labor. And I can say that the headaches that I got during being severe with ME were comparable to that level of labor pain. That they were just try not to scream and cry constantly. Like, they were torture. I have never experienced anything like them. That was the level of headaches. And what they were, I got migraines, but also cluster headaches, which tend to be on one side, and they make your eye water and maybe your nose water, and you sort of feel it in your eye and your ear. Regular migraines, which are more all over and light sensitive, and you feel like you're going to throw up. Then I got fire headaches, which is what I called them. It just like feels like the top of your head is on fire. It's an inflammation thing. And those got really, really, sometimes I get a cluster headache and a fire headache at the same time. And that was when they were at that level of extreme severity. My husband just kept putting cooling pads on my head, and I would just lie there in agony trying not to scream my head off. Then there's like the ice pick headache, which is like it's like being stabbed for about 30 seconds to 60 seconds. You know, you're in the middle of a conversation with somebody and all of a sudden it's like you're gasping for breath and those are possibly the most painful, but they only last for a little bit. Anxiety and depression for a lot of people come in with chronic fatigue. That relationship is not well understood. But just know that anxiety and depression are things that come into play with chronic fatigue, myalgic encephalomyelitis. There's also the actual fatigue itself, which is absolutely horrible. If you've ever had a really bad flu where all your muscles feel like lead and walking feels like you've got a suit of armor on and you're just trying to lift your arms, that's what the fatigue feels like. It's like the worst, the most intense workout you've ever had, and then have the flu and have been up all night with a screaming child on top of it. That's what it feels like. And it can get worse from there. It's hard to even describe to somebody who hasn't experienced it. But if you're more mild, maybe it just feels like you have the flu without throwing up. Though, sometimes for me, if I move too fast, if I get up and do something too fast, I get a gag, choking sort of reflex that tells me I need to stop moving right away and lie down on the floor wherever I am. I have thrown up from that. What else? Random shooting pains. Suddenly your eyeball cramps, or you get a shooting pain down your leg, or your fingers like have searing pain in them, or, you know, some people actually get seizures or crazy muscle spasms. Dr. Bonilla at Stanford has documented a number of those. I experienced what's called an MS hug, which is like having a band wrapped around from your chest down to your hips, crushing you. It felt like labor pain. It was like, just like, it literally, you know, yeah, it feels like being crushed, and like by steel bands, and you're just paralyzed with being crushed. And that lasted like a couple hours for me once. It's supposed to only happen in MS, but it's happened to me a number of times, and it's happened to other patients at Stanford, I know. There's a lot of random neurological stuff that happens. When I was more severe in the beginning, I'm a professional artist, and I could not draw a circle. I couldn't draw a square. My hand felt like a bad remote was controlling it, like, or through thick gloves, like nothing was working right. And my legs felt like that when I was trying to walk. So I am in a wheelchair outside the house. I used to basically walk a few steps in the house and sit down on a chair and walk another few steps. I just had chairs all over the house, and sometimes I couldn't make it to one. I just go to the floor. You know, you scoot upstairs on your butt, that kind of thing. Yeah, you can, the other thing, let's see if there's any other pains described. I mean, there's so many random pains and things. Oh yeah, heart racing. You can have your heart racing like crazy. You're in an adrenaline fight-flight stage for hours. That's another thing that can happen. Trying to sleep. You're exhausted all the time, and yet you can't sleep. And yeah, that's another thing. Hot and cold, your temperature regulation sucks. You start, you know, everyone else is at a fine temperature and you find yourself shaking and you have goosebumps and you're freezing, or you're running sweat down your back. Those things happen too. I was in a museum once in the wheelchair, looking at paintings and reading the captions underneath, and I lost the ability to read. I just suddenly couldn't read anymore. These are the kinds of things that happen with your brain and body with ME. It's just, you never know what's going to happen next. But you do know whenever you push, you will get worse. If you push, you crash, you get worse. You sometimes get worse a little bit at a time through crashing all the time, but you can also crash and get worse all at once. I did in one day. I went from mild to severe in one day. So pushing is a horrible idea. You can't outfight this. You have to outpatient it. You have to be super patient and calm and protect your brain and protect your energy in your body, protect your sensory intake, and that's how you fight it. You can't fight it by pushing harder. That will make you worse, guaranteed. That's one of the only things all the experts agree on, is pushing makes you worse. So yeah, that's a little window into what it's like. You can imagine the levels of boredom and frustration and depression that go with that, of watching everybody else living their lives and doing their things and spending time with their children and, you know, dating and skiing and doing whatever it is people are able to do that you can no longer do, and having to say no when friends who don't understand try to get you to do things. I mean, it's nice to be invited to things, even if you can't go. But when people think, why can't you just go to this? You know, what's wrong? You know, why can't you just? It's just not something you can do to people. If somebody needs to cancel, you have to understand that's just what it is. You can't be part of making them push over their boundaries, because that will make them worse. Give a lot of understanding and a lot of patience to people in this situation, because we need all of it that we can get. Thank you.